Before anyone realized the farm had gone silent, the first sign came from the dog, his barking carrying across the empty fields for days. A strained, relentless sound neighbors heard every morning and every night. A noise that didn't rise or fall, just kept going, as if he was reacting to something he couldn't escape. And while his voice echoed through the cold air, a thin line of smoke still rose from the farmhouse chimney, steady and controlled, suggesting someone inside was tending the fire, even though no one had seen the family anywhere. Not in the yard, not in the village, not on the road. And the little girl, who never missed a day, hadn't shown up to school. This is the Hinterkaifeck breathtaking story, a chain of small, unsettling details that should never have lined up the way they did, yet somehow all pointed to the same silent truth waiting inside that farm. Inside that isolated farmhouse lived 6 people, each moving through their days with quiet routines that rarely changed. Andreas Gruber kept the place running with a strict, watchful presence. He noticed things, small things, sounds the house made, shifts in the wind, tools left half an inch from where he remembered placing them. His wife, Cecilia, carried the calm of the home. She moved carefully, listening more than she spoke, always aware when something felt off in the rooms behind her. Their daughter, Victoria, strong and steady, held the family together. She managed the chores, the children, the rhythm of the house, even when the nights began to feel heavier than they should. Little Cecilia filled the halls with soft footsteps, the kind that made the silence feel less empty. Baby Joseph followed the daylight from room to room, unaware of the tension the adults tried not to show. And then there was the maid. Before the house fell silent, one person had already tried to warn them. The maid, Crescens Rieger, had worked there long enough to know the normal sounds of the farmhouse. The creak of the beams, the cattle shifting in the barn, the wind dragging across the roof at night. But in her final weeks, the sounds changed. They came from the wrong places, at the wrong hours. She heard footsteps above her room long after everyone had gone to bed. Heavy, measured steps crossing the attic floor, pausing, then moving again. Not settling wood, not animals, someone walking. Then came the whispers, faint, drifting through the hallway when the house should have been still. She couldn't make out words, only the presence behind them. A feeling that someone else was inside the walls with her. She tried to ignore it. She tried to explain it away. But the sense of being watched grew sharper every night, until she began moving through the house with her shoulders tight, turning her head before entering rooms, checking corners twice. One morning, without asking for her pay, without saying goodbye, she packed her things and walked off the property. She didn't look back. She didn't slow down. She just left the farm behind her. When she reached the village, she said one sentence, the only explanation she ever gave. I wasn't alone in that house. After she left, the Gruber family carried on with their routines. But the quiet around the farm changed. It felt heavier, closer. And whatever she sensed, stayed. After the maid walked away, the Gruber family tried to settle back into their routines. But the house didn't return to normal, it changed. Andreas Gruber was the first to notice it. Tools he had placed carefully in the barn were moved by morning. Not stolen, just shifted, as if someone had handled them and put them back without understanding where they belonged. Then came the noises. Soft, deliberate sounds drifting from the attic at night. Not wind, not animals. Footsteps. Slow. Controlled. Crossing the boards above their heads. Andreas searched the attic more than once. Each time he found nothing. No intruder, no damage, no explanation. But the sounds kept returning, always after dark, always when the house was supposed to be asleep. Outside, the snow told its own story. One morning, Andreas found a single line of footprints leading from the forest straight to the farmhouse, but none leading back out. He followed them as far as he could, but the trail ended at the door. Inside, keys began to disappear, small ones at first, then the main house key. No one admitted to moving it. No one could explain where it went. The family tried to ignore it. They tried to continue as if nothing was wrong, but the signs kept stacking, one on top of another, until the house felt watched from the inside. Something was there, something that didn't belong, and it was getting closer. The days that followed didn't bring answers. They brought silence, the kind that settles into a house and refuses to leave. Andreas kept checking the barn, the attic, the yard. He walked the same paths over and over, boots pressing into the snow, eyes scanning the tree line. Each time he returned with the same conclusion. Nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing taken. But something was wrong. Inside the farmhouse, the air felt heavier. Rooms that once carried normal family noise now held long stretches of quiet. Victoria moved through the house slower than before, pausing at doorways as if listening for something she didn't want to hear again. At night, the footsteps in the attic didn't grow louder. They grew more deliberate. One step, a pause, another. As if whoever was up there had learned the rhythm of the family and was adjusting to it. The missing key never returned. They searched drawers, pockets, shelves, the barn, the yard. It was simply gone. And the family stopped talking about it, not because they forgot, but because speaking it aloud made the situation too real. Outside, the footprints from the forest faded under new snow. But Andreas kept looking toward the woods, as if expecting someone to step out again. The house didn't erupt into chaos. It didn't scream for attention. It just, tightened. A slow, creeping pressure settling into every room, every hallway, every night. And the Gruber family lived inside that pressure, unaware that the stillness gathering around them was the last calm they would ever feel. Then the house went silent for days. The first thing the neighbors noticed wasn't the silence. It was the routine breaking. The Gruber family never missed their patterns. The smoke from the chimney always rose at the same hours. The animals were always tended to. Victoria's daughter always walked to school. But that week, the rhythm slipped. The little girl didn't arrive at class. No message, no explanation, just an empty seat. At the farm, the chimney still burned, but no one was seen feeding the fire. The smoke drifted steadily into the sky, as if someone inside was keeping it alive without ever stepping outside. The dog barked through the nights, sharp, distressed, relentless. It wasn't the normal farm bark. It was the kind that carried across fields, the kind that made people stop what they were doing and listen. Neighbors passed by the property and saw the same unsettling picture. Doors closed, curtains still, animals restless, the yard untouched. The farm looked lived in, but not lived. Mail piled up. Deliveries sat where they were left, and the silence around the house grew heavier by the day. By the third day, the neighbors exchanged the same uneasy thought, the one no one wanted to say out loud. Something was wrong at Hinterkaifeck, and whatever was happening inside that farmhouse, the family wasn't stopping it. When the neighbors finally stepped onto the Hinterkaifeck property, the first thing they noticed was the silence. Not the normal quiet of a farm, a deeper one. A silence that felt like it had weight. The dog barked from inside the barn, frantic, pulling against its chain. The animals were restless, hungry, pacing, but no voices came from the house. No footsteps, no movement. They called out for the family. No answer. One of the men pushed open the barn door. The hinges groaned. The the smell of hay and cold air mixing as the light slipped inside. They stepped in cautiously, eyes adjusting, scanning the shadows. At first, nothing looked wrong. Tools in place, hay stacked, everything exactly where it should be. Then they saw it, a shape beneath the hay, then another, and another. They pulled the hay back with shaking hands, and the truth surfaced in the dust and the cold. Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, Victoria, little Cecilia, all lying together, covered as if someone had tried to hide them or protect them. The neighbors froze. The barn felt smaller. The air felt colder. And the silence that had hung over the farm suddenly made sense. Inside the house, they found the rest. Baby Joseph in his cot, the new maid, Maria, in her room. Every member of the household accounted for, except the person who had been living in the attic. The footsteps, the missing key, the footprints from the forest with no return trail. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. Someone had been inside the house long before the murders. Someone had moved through their rooms, watched their routines, learned their patterns. And when the neighbors stepped back outside, the farm didn't feel abandoned. It felt occupied. When investigators arrived at Hinterkaifeck, they didn't walk into a crime scene. They walked into a puzzle. The barn was their first stop. The bodies lay exactly as the neighbors had found them, covered with hay, arranged close together, as if someone had returned to them more than once. The investigators noted the injuries, the direction of the blows, the pattern of the blood. The weapon wasn't there, but the force was unmistakable. Inside the house, the stillness felt unnatural. Every room looked lived in, but untouched. Baby Joseph lay in his cot, covered with a dress. The maid was found in her bed, as if she had been asleep when it happened. Nothing was ransacked. Nothing was stolen. Money was still in drawers. The investigators moved through the rooms slowly, checking doors, windows, locks. That was when they noticed the first detail that didn't fit. The house key was still missing. They searched the attic next. The boards were dusty but not untouched. Footprints, disturbed hay, signs that someone had been living up there, quietly, patiently, for days or weeks before the murders. In the kitchen, the investigators found something else. Food recently eaten. Bread cut. Meat taken. Someone had stayed in the house after the killings. The dog barked relentlessly from the barn, pulling at its chain, reacting to something the investigators couldn't see. Outside, they examined the snow. The same detail Andreas had noticed days earlier was still visible in the investigators' notes. Footprints leading from the forest to the farm. None leading back. Every clue pointed inward. Every sign suggested the same chilling truth. The killer didn't break in. The killer was already inside. And as the investigators stepped back from the farmhouse, one thought settled over the entire case. A thought that would haunt every theory that followed. Whoever did this knew the family, knew the house, and knew how to disappear without leaving the property. After the bodies were found, the farm didn't return to normal. It couldn't. The investigators left. The neighbors stepped back. But the silence stayed exactly where it had been. Pressed into the walls, the floors, the attic boards. Word spread through the village fast. People came to the property in small groups, standing at a distance, staring at the farmhouse as if it might move. No one wanted to go inside. No one wanted to imagine what had happened in those rooms. The animals were removed. The dog was taken away. The house remained. For weeks, the farm sat untouched. Curtains still drawn. Tools still in place. The barn door still carrying the marks from where the neighbors had forced it open. Everything frozen in the moment the family's lives ended. Investigators returned again and again, each time hoping for something they had missed. A footprint, a tool, a scrap of clothing, anything. But the case didn't open. It stayed locked, the same way the house had been locked from the inside. Rumors spread, theories multiplied, but no suspect was ever arrested. Eventually, the decision was made. The farmhouse would be demolished. Workers arrived, tools in hand, and began tearing down the walls piece by piece. As they dismantled the structure, they found something that confirmed what the family had feared before they died. A newspaper inside the house that none of them had purchased. A hidden space in the attic where someone had been sleeping. A vantage point overlooking the family's bedrooms. The house came down. The land was cleared. But the case didn't move. Hinterkaifeck became a story without an ending. A crime with no confession, no trial, no closure. A place where the truth lived in the walls and the walls were gone. All that remained was the silence, and the knowledge that whoever had lived above the family walked away without leaving a single trace.